Here we go. This final insurrection hearing begins in about an hour. It caps an investigation that's taken testimony from over 1,000 witnesses, many of them more than once, some of them live. Because that Trump-fueled insurrection was a historical rarity, some of this process, the whole thing, is unusual as well. Let me tell you what I mean. Example. All of this, is an investigation of conduct that a president was already impeached for on the very precise charge of incitement of insurrection. These hearings have gone on to unearth more damning evidence than that impeachment, which brings us to our special report for you right now. That quick trial marked the first impeachment of a president after leaving office as well. And that's a damning distinction for Donald Trump because, by definition, virtually any impeachment of a losing president for trying to overthrow their losing election will run up against the time that he or she is out of office. In this case, because he lost. So he had to go, and then the accountability process continued after he was out of government. Well, it's easy to lose sight of just how fast that process went compared to any other impeachments, let alone a criminal trial for a crime like sedition, which can run over a year. So here you go. The House impeached Trump for inciting insurrection on January 13th. That Senate trial finished on February 13th. It was a total of exactly 31 days. Super fast. So that case focused primarily on evidence gathered in that short time, some of it public, focusing often on the most public things, like how Donald Trump publicly said, tweeted, and then assembled and inflamed that crowd on January 6th.
On January 6th, we know who lit the fuse.
The evidence will show you that he assembled, inflamed, and incited his followers to descend upon the Capitol.
We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are.
The truth is usually seen and rarely heard. Truth is truth, whether denied or not.
The argument focused on Trump's words on January 6th, which meant the Senate and then the nation was presented with a somewhat narrow case that fixated on Trump's speech and whether it rose to the legal level of incitement. And Trump defenders actually were sometimes eager to jump on that, to try to narrow the whole discussion, debate, or legal analysis into one of rhetoric or speech criticism.
Donald Trump surrendered his role as commander-in-chief and became the inciter-in-chief.
That issue is, did the 45th president engage in incitement of, they continue to say, insurrection?
Now, some have said that President Trump's remarks, his speech on January 6th, was just a speech. This was not just a speech.
The whole storyline that Donald Trump caused this by his speech has fallen apart.
President Trump whipped the crowd into a frenzy, exhorting followers, if you don't fight like hell.
Speech, just a speech. Was it a speech? Was it legal incitement? If you remember, our coverage asked whether it was legal incitement of violence. We covered at the time how that's a very high bar, which is different, say, than obstructing a proceeding or whether you were pursuing a coup. So just as the first impeachment was sometimes cast as this phone call debate, the second one was often limited to this speech debate. The House Democrats and their lawyers also stressed the wider legal constitutional obligations of a president. Take the acclaimed attorney Berke, who was counsel for both Trump impeachments.
It is a requirement that the president be a person who does not risk national security of this nation and the integrity of our elections in order to further his own re-election prospects.
And that was all the way back in 2019. The accruing evidence shows Trump did both those things, Mr. Berke said, attacking national security and election integrity, and did both of them through this plotting to try to stay in office. And the second impeachment drew the most bipartisan vote in history. 7 Republican senators voting to convict Donald Trump for his role in that insurrection, which we will be hearing about again tonight. But these hearings tonight that hit their crescendo tonight, they've gone further than the evidence from those impeachments because they have the evidence that goes beyond any speech or incitement debate to an actual multi-month attempted coup. Trump leading a multi-pronged conspiracy, as prosecutor Andrew Weissman has put it, orchestrated by Trump and his allies. So long before the speech, you have the fraudulent electors, the state-level attempts at voter fraud, trying to involve DOJ, a wider effort leading up to the 6th that was then supposed to crescendo in making Mike Pence break the law. And impeachment, of course, is also about one person in office. These hearings have been effective by featuring the wider context of Trump officials turning on their colleagues, phoning in the evidence, showing up at depositions, with Trump now accused by his own aides of making these demands that took efforts from all these other individuals like Roger Stone and Michael Flynn at that military coup meeting, and Rudy Giuliani now under new subpoenas, and Jeffrey Clark at DOJ, and John Eastman, the lawyer. Let's just focus on the two of them. You have Eastman, the coup lawyer, who found himself recently searched. Agents seizing his phone, hands on his head, forced to give up the phone pursuant to a lawful search warrant, which he was shown. Or that lawyer Clark, hit with a search warrant at his own home early in the morning because a judge also found that there was reasonable suspicion of criminal evidence in the home, sadly, of a person who is supposed to enforce the law, not hide criminal evidence. Or you have Steve Bannon declined today to offer any defense in that trial. He now faces up to 2 years in prison if convicted. Or Peter Navarro, arrested, searched, and cuffed, which he has complained about vociferously after discussing his role in what he called a sweep, but what looked like a coup, including on MSNBC. You take it together and you have the revelations, the evidence, the wider corroboration. And it is more than a speech. It is way more than what Donald Trump said, however bad it may have been on that date. And it is all backed by people in the room who were otherwise completely committed to Trump's ideological and governing goals.
The stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bull.
I don't want to hear any other effing words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition.
He delivered to the president pretty blunt terms that he was going to lose.
We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable.
The president's mind was made up.
They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
I didn't understand how they had gotten in. The first thing I did, I walked in, I looked at them, and I said, "Who are you?"
There was ketchup dripping down the wall, and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor.
Just about everything you just heard is backed tenfold by those 1,000+ witness depositions, the report we're ultimately going to get. And it is striking in a time where everyone likes to say, didn't we know that? And wasn't this bad? And haven't we already heard that? This is all new and all well beyond those first two damning impeachments of this president who has had so many legal problems. Given the aforementioned Mr. Berke, I am thrilled to tell you that here on hearing night, he is my special guest. Barry Berke is a nationally renowned trial lawyer. He served as counsel for both of those impeachments. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks, Ari. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I know you're at work and you're making time for us. Speak to that larger point that however hard you worked and whatever efficacy you had, indeed the second trial of Donald Trump had a more bipartisan rebuke than any president in history. But it seems fair objectively to note you were working with less evidence than now. What do you think of what these hearings, this probe has unearthed?
I think these hearings have been really extraordinary in terms of how they have built on what we did in the past. Part of it is they have subpoenas that are enforceable, which plagued both impeachments and the investigation, because there's now an independent Department of Justice that was prepared to hold people like Steve Bannon in contempt or prosecute him for a crime of contempt.
Let's pause on that, and then you'll continue.
Yeah.
If you had worked with a DOJ that was actually enforcing subpoenas with jail time, you think you would have got a lot more evidence, huh?
100%, because people don't want to go to jail. They show up and then they tell the truth, or they could be prosecuted. But what they have gotten is just an extraordinary amount of evidence that not only builds upon what we did in the impeachments, but goes even further. Right? You know, you quoted me saying that this is someone who put their own personal and political interests over the interests of the country.
Yeah.
That could be an opening statement in the criminal prosecution of Donald J. Trump. And it would tie together everything that happened in terms of telling Brad Raffensperger, find 11,000 plus votes that I need, or his senior DOJ leadership, just say it's fraud, leave the rest to me. Acts that don't turn on whether there's a dispute about the election. There is no defense to that kind of conduct. And when you think of an overarching scheme to tie together all the evidence, it shows someone who is prepared to put their own interests above that of the country, democracy, ultimately the safety of their vice president, members of Congress, the police defending them, and everyone else. That is a powerful narrative. And there are many criminal statutes, including interfering with an official proceeding, that are prosecuted every day. And I've said this, and I've said this to you, I've had clients prosecuted on a fraction of this evidence. So I think if the question is, did he commit a crime? I would think there's overwhelming evidence that the answer is the affirmative. Could he be prosecuted? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Then the question is, should he be prosecuted? And I would come back to the through line. He got away with it in the first impeachment. The day after Mueller testified, he called the Ukrainian president to try to interfere with the 2020, then engaged in this conduct. Not only specific deterrence of this one person, but because of his conduct, you now have people running for election based on the promise they're going to interfere with future elections. And you have to send the message that if you commit a crime as a public official or a former public official that interferes with our most sacred rights as a democratic, country, that is the right to have free and fair elections, and that the winner will be actually the candidate who had the most votes. You have to prosecute people who commit crimes to interfere with that, regardless of whether they're public officials.
We got about 45 seconds, and then we're going to bring in Rachel and the team's special coverage. If you put inciting the violence to the side, do you still see provable crimes against Trump?
100%. There are very basic crimes. Interfering with an official proceeding is the most obvious. Congress was certifying the vote on January 6th, and you saw steps every step of the way that he took to interfere with that, and he became more and more desperate when he sent out the text to cause people to come to Washington and then purposely incited them. That is not the crime. That is the culmination of the crime. Every step of the way is part of the scheme to do that. Yeah. And I think the evidence of that is now overwhelming.
Yeah, you lay it out. How late are you working tonight?
Well, I was waiting for you. I get to go home now, see the family.
Yeah, all right. You get out of that office? All right, we appreciate that, because I know you were working, which is why we have you on remote. Mr. Barry Berke, counsel to 2 impeachments, walking us through this tonight. Thank you.